I'm going to be assisted by Rob Hill. Both of us are sustainability team volunteers at Ethical Reading, and we're a social enterprise that's all about making Reading a better place to live and work. So just a few housekeeping points. If you could please keep yourself muted during the session. We're going to be recording the session. So if you don't want to appear, please keep your video off. And afterwards, we'll be sharing that on our YouTube channel, and it will be saved also on the Reading Culture Live website, where it will be shared later. So if you don't want your video to appear, keep it off. Your name isn't going to appear anyway. The names are blanked out. If you think of a question, please note it in the chat box and mention if it's for someone in particular, or you can click participants and select the raise my hand option, or you can try putting up your real hand, but we might not spot you. So the idea is that you have the chance to ask the participants anything that you want about the way that they approach sustainability in their organisations. So I'd like to let the panelists introduce themselves now. The brief word first. So the sustainability champions, they're all people at local organisations who are really passionate about sustainability. Some of them, it might be officially part of their role. Some of them are volunteers. Some of them actually work in this arena, and this is the mainstay of what they're all about. But the main idea is that we wanted to connect with people that were passionate about making a difference within their business, bring them together and help to empower them to do more by connecting them with each other and also helping them learn from local experts. So we're very lucky to have one of those with us here today. So I'll kick off with you, Akil, because Tina isn't with us yet. Could you just give us a brief summary of who you are, please?
Yeah, thanks, Catherine, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Akil Handa. I work for a company called Earth 51. We are a Reading-based sustainability advisory firm. And we're very young. We've been around for the last year and a half or so. And our day-to-day job is to help businesses become better versions of themselves. That's pretty much what we do.
Perfect, thank you. And Poppy?
Hi, everyone. I'm Poppy Harris. I work at Oracle Corporation. And my role there is the sustainability manager for the EMEA region. Specifically within Oracle, I work within real estate and facilities. So my focus is very much on the operational controls within our buildings and our data centers across Europe, the Middle East and Africa. So specifically looking at energy, water waste, wellness, transport and biodiversity.
Perfect, thank you, Poppy. And Sarah?
Hi everyone, my name's Sarah and I work for Coveyor Insurance, an insurance company that are based in town in Reading. My day-to-day role is not environmentally or green or sustainability based, but I lead our Reading-based green team. We've got another couple in our other main site, and that's a volunteer-based team looking at how we can make different changes within the business.
Perfect, thank you. And Willem?
Hello everyone, I'm Willem. I work at Bottom Line Technologies, and again, I'm not someone that has a professional background in sustainability, but I've took that on as a sustainable champion within Bottom Line.
Thank you. And Cindy?
Hi everyone, my name's Cindy. I work as my day job as a tax assistant manager for Grant Thornton UK LLP, but I also volunteer for our local sustainability team in my spare time, and that covers our Reading office, our Oxford office and our Southampton office.
Brilliant, thank you, Cindy. So Tina, do we have you with us now?
Hi, sorry.
Hey!
My Gabriella just came in to help out at the cafe.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, Tina, this gives a little bit of background. Don't worry, Tina, I'm really glad you could join us. So Tina, would you just like to introduce yourself, say what your name is and what your role is?
Okay, my name's Tina, and I'm the owner and cafe manager of Decaf Community Cafe. We just opened in, it's been about a month now. And I also ran Tinker Tots, which is like cookery classes and catering for children.
Perfect, that's fantastic. So as you can see, we've got quite a wide range. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing now so we can just all see each other. Hi, Tina. So yeah, this is a good opportunity to ask these panelists anything that you might like about the way that they approach sustainability in their organisations. and how they have actually made a difference. So in some of their cases, their main role is not sustainability, but it's just something that they're passionate about and they're able to make a difference. And I think this is actually something that a lot of people would be keen to learn about, because a lot of us feel frustrated that our organisations are not approaching sustainability with any seriousness, and it would be really empowering to find out how others have actually made that happen. So talking of that, sorry to put you on the spot, Willem, but would you mind talking a little bit about how you got started? Because I think your story is really interesting.
Yeah, I think I got started when I got introduced to ethical reading, and then I thought, well, why are we not doing something like this at Bottom Line ourselves? And it's a little bit one of those serendipity moments that at the same time I talked to someone in HR and they said, well, why don't you set up a group within Bottom Line? And I said, well, can I do that? And yes, they said so. It's very easy to think that you're the only one that's thinking the things. But when I sent my first email to say, right, we're going to start this group, I got so many responses and so many very positive responses, and that you very quickly see, right, okay, together we can make a change. And one of the first projects that we did is introduce or get rid of all the plastic cups. Now, when we started the Blue Planet from David Attenborough, that had just aired, and everyone was on about plastic, so we thought, well, let's do that. And I don't know if any one of you've got any water coolers at the office or used to have them, because I'm working from home now. But everyone was just going to the toilet, picking up a new cup, and then had them on the desk 5 or 6 at the end of the day. So we thought, well, why don't we just do glasses? Now, we couldn't wash all of that up, so we didn't have enough space to go for glasses. But we introduced bottles. So everyone that didn't have a bottle at home and that they wanted to bring in for whatever reason, they could order one and we would distribute them. And one of the things is that everyone said, everyone's going to make a problem out of it. When we did it, everyone was very happy with the bottles that we gave them, because they got something for free.
Yeah.
Nobody complained, and all of a sudden we didn't have to spend also the money on 30,000 plastic cups that we would order every year. So it was not necessarily so sustainable. It's more common sense also for the financial director, because all of a sudden he got a cut in the cost. So I think that's sometimes the switch you've got to make. And think about it in a different way.
It's really interesting what you said about the financial impact sort of coming as a secondary thing. So the main thing was, okay, let's try and do something small to improve the sustainability of our organisation. But then as a secondary thing, they saved money. Do you think that actually helped to change the mindset a little bit of the decision makers?
Yeah, but you have to pick your projects, and not every project is gonna make a return. Some are just, you have to do that because that's the right thing to do. But at the same time, I'm not saying that just getting rid of the plastic cups is gonna change the world. It's gonna change people's habits, and then they see that you can make it habit without change the habit without making it a problem for everyone.
Yeah.
Actually, it's fairly easy. People just, if it's there, they do it, and if it's not there anymore, then there's no problem really.
It's just a change of mentality, isn't it?
Exactly, but the main thing is that you see where your strong points are in your company and align it with the core your core missions, because that's when you really start making the big changes.
Absolutely. So I've got a question in here from Malcolm Powers at Tegula Consulting. So he's asking, one of the areas where emissions are not reducing is in relation to transport. What are people doing to change transport behaviour within their organisations, and how successful have you been? So that's a challenging one at the moment, isn't it? Because of the pandemic, a lot of people are not actually traveling at all, but maybe it's an opportunity to try and address things now before people start to go back, and then see if things can change. Has anyone got any stories they'd like to share on that?
Yeah, I'm happy to take Malcolm's question, because
Cool,
this is something we were actually looking at in my organisation on a national level, not just at a local level, prior to the pandemic. And what we did is quite interesting, following up on what Willa mentioned and what you pointed out, Catherine, around the financial impact. We tried to link it in with updating our expenses policy. So our company were looking at costs and looking at expenses and where they went, and actually quite a lot of costs are spent on transport. Transport's hugely expensive, especially since, specifically to my firm, we're professional services, so you have people going out to clients all the time, left, right and centre, and so when you actually think, okay, well, if we want to reduce the transport, then we'll also reduce our costs at the same time, that kind of gets senior people on board with it. So for example, our expenses policy currently isn't really in line with being eco-friendly, because the company will pay people, I think it's the tax limit, I think something like 45p a mile to travel in a car, and then they'll give them 5p per passenger. So people that both have their own cars and could both drive are incentivized to drive their own car and get 45p per mile rather than lift share. So that's one of the things we're looking into. That hasn't changed yet. That's something I'm trying to push forward. But it's something I suggested to more senior people is, well, actually, if we amended that policy, we'd have people reducing their emissions because they'd be travelling in one car rather than two cars. And then on the plus side, the firm has to pay out 50p rather than 90p, which is a small amount. But when you've got a company that's full of auditors and they travel to client sites every day of the week, obviously that's not the case at the moment with the pandemic.
This is the thing. And that's actually, it's quite upsetting, isn't it? Because that's actually a really cool idea that you had, but now we've got the issue of the pandemic. People aren't actually wanting to car share, and actually it's illegal. Everything is just thrown out. But actually that's a really good point, that these policies can actually influence what people do, and also it's the way that you market it. It's that internal communication, isn't it, in a large company, that could actually start to change the way people think about things. Have any of the others, if you've got some stories to share on that point about transport methods changing?
Speaking.
One of the things we haven't necessarily done too much to date, but I'm hopeful that, given that everybody's managed to work so successfully from home, we came from a starting point as well. I know we're looking at expenses and how could they be reduced, travel being a huge one. And actually, this has forced everybody to work from home, and we've realised we can be really effective. You know, we've all managed so well to still operate, you know, not too far lower than we were before. So actually, I think that's going to be massive going forwards. I think we're going to, as a company, use the technology that we've got far more, rather than just traveling to other sites or for the sake of it, particularly for internal purposes. Something we've talked about but haven't really done any looking into yet is having electric vehicles in, you know, where we've got company cars. We own our building in Reading, so that's definitely a location that we could potentially look into having a charging spot. So yeah, those are some potential things that we might look at.
So do you feel that actually it's quite handy to have this sort of downtime where you can focus on these things to put in place when everything starts back up?
Yes, I think so. I think we're at the point now where we're kind of getting to that reset point. Everything's been a bit crazy over the past few months, and I must admit some of the sort of green stuff, because it is a voluntary role in our organisation, some of that has taken a back seat. But we're now looking at making some changes as to the way our community groups operate internally. So we've got green, which is looking at environmental, we've got charity, wellbeing, minds, various groups, and we're looking at actually how do we all come together to change things going forwards. We've got a new sponsor within the company, so I'm hopeful that actually going forwards from now, this is a point where we can say, right, we've managed to work from home, we've got that bit over with, let's reset and reprioritize some of this stuff.
So do you want to talk a bit about that, your sponsor that you've got inside the company and the difference that's made? Because I think this is going back to what Willem was saying about him being passionate but then trying to get something to happen. Do you want to talk a bit more about how you have done that engagement and what difference you hope it will make?
Yes, definitely. So, as I say, the Green Team's always been a volunteer group, which has been great. It's come from people that have got a real passion coming together and trying to make changes. Historically, it was always sort of an awareness piece. We've always had a bit of backing from internal comms, and they've been willing to sort of put things out when we've wanted to get some business engagement. We've also had great support from facilities. So as a team that's never had any budget to make any changes, we've been really reliant on facilities to sort of, you know, engage with us and be supportive, and they've been brilliant, and we've rolled out all sorts of things locally. And I think we then got to the point towards the start of the year where we said, actually, we've done a lot of those small changes, the replacing the plastic cups, the, you know, adding more recycling options, getting rid of desk side bins and having recycling bins over the floor just to make it more difficult for people to do the wrong thing. But actually now what we need is a bit more support from the top down, because I think when we're doing those engagement and awareness pieces, it's really easy for the people that they're already interested. People that are already interested in environmental matters are going to engage, and they're going to take part, and they're going to use the recycling bins. Whereas actually, I think for us, it was then really important to have for Conveyor as a whole to sort of say, actually, this is something that we as a company really care about, and actually we want everybody to do the right thing. So we reached out to our CEO at the start of, actually tail end of last year, and sort of said, actually, you know, we'd really like your support. We knew it was something he was interested in. We said, actually, we want a bit more from your side, you know, and more awareness, more publicising of some of the stuff that we're doing internally, but also making some really big changes. So we put forward a bit of an agenda. These are still some of the small items we'd like to do. These are some commercial items that we could, as a business, differentiate ourselves in the marketplace. And what does our strategy look like? Have we got one? And that's actually coming to fruition now. We've now got an executive sponsor who's a member of the board. And so he's really now engaged with us. He's been put in charge of putting forward a sustainability plan for Conveyor. So yes, it's great news for us, and hopefully we'll be able to work with him and make some of the big changes that we'd really like to get to.
Thank you, that's really cool. So I've got a question from Daniel Mayer. Would you like to talk, Daniel?
Yeah, if the microphone, hey, it's working. Yeah. Lovely, thank you very much, guys. So one thing I want to ask, I work at a tuition provider in Reading, and we will regularly have to go through a lot of material. So for example, if a class of students come in, 5 students come in, that could easily be 2,000-3,000 pages of paper to get them all the material they'll need for their assurance course or their principles of taxation, all these sort of courses. So a lot of resources going through that, we're chewing through a lot of them. One thing I wanted to ask, I don't know if anyone specifically know a lot about this, but in terms of sourcing material, in terms of making sure that we are getting the material from the right places, that we're getting paper, for example, if we're getting all this paper, how can we make sure we're getting the paper that is, I guess, paper that's environmentally friendly, but also in terms of delivery, in terms of that infrastructure, how can we as a mindset look at that and as sort of using an approach, interrogate that and make sure we're getting every inch of that right?
Akhil, would you like to answer that one? So Akhil, he, as you said at the beginning, he actually works to help companies align what they do with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So he probably is one of the best people on our panel to answer that. Are you around, Akhil? Ooh, he's gone quiet.
If Akhil isn't there, I can answer part.
So Cindy, do you want to start off then, and if he comes back, then
come back.
Yeah.
Just speaking from a personal perspective, I've taken all of those exams. I qualified for ATA last year, in fact. So I know how it works well, where you have all of the different, you get a massive folder, several books, some of which are sat on the shelf behind me and haven't been opened since I passed the exam. But what I would say is I noticed that someone in my class didn't have a folder one day, and I asked them about it, and they had managed to download all of the notes, get electronic copies onto their iPad. And they were just using Adobe Pro, and they were able to use an electronic pen and just annotate it.
Wow.
And doing everything online. And so I switched to doing that as well. And while I've got an iPad mini and I couldn't do everything that they were doing, I was able to actually get a lot of the notes and things like question banks, which anyone know what that is, question banks and the information packs that you get given. I was able to put them all onto my iPad and just use those resources. And then the only paper I was going through was notebooks when I was actually physically writing out the questions.
Wow.
So actually, I think it is possible to move some of those resources online. And I know, especially in a COVID environment, some of my colleagues are now doing all of their tuition online, which means they're learning online in a virtual environment anyway. And it's especially since the exams are all moving to be computer based, again, a lot of the material is all online just by the nature of it. So I think while it's very important that while obviously you are still sourcing paper to source it sustainably, and that's obviously something Akhil would be much more qualified to answer, I think there is that question of challenging your business on actually why are we doling out all of these massive printed resources where can we not encourage people to download it on their laptops first? And if people don't have the means to purchase an electronic software that allows them to do stuff online on their laptops, can we say, okay, we'll provide you with the paper stuff on day one if you haven't brought it in an electronic ready?
Yeah, I think it would be good to have it as an option, wouldn't it? Because I think for some people, they really need to have that physical paper in front of them. They need to put markers in and highlight and all of this. But for some people, that's not useful. And actually, so many of us now are used to absorbing information on screen. And that's actually something we're really comfortable with. And the ability to cut and paste and all of this is actually very handy, isn't it? From if you're able to access screen resources. So thank you very much, Cindy. Akhil, you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was.
That's all right.
I thought that the question might be coming my way. I missed the question.
Oh no, you dropped out. So yeah, I'm glad you cottoned on before you disappeared. So yeah, are you able to help Daniel with the concept of how to make the paper usage in his business more sustainable? So even if they are going to continue using paper, how could they actually switch to using a more sustainably sourced paper and maybe look to step down the amount that they produce and distribute?
Yeah, sorry, I missed the question. So
basically, Daniel, do you want to just summarize it again rather than me paraphrasing?
Yeah, so in our business, we're printing and creating a lot of resources. We're printing a lot of paper. We're ordering a lot of folders, and we're making a lot of deliveries to have all this sent out to people.
Because you're training providers.
We're training providers.
That,
yeah. And so we want to make sure that if we're doing this and we're going to go through thousands of bits of paper and ordering dozens of folders, and that we're shipping all of it, sometimes 10-20 deliveries a day, that we're approaching that in the best way possible. And sort of what would be the best way in terms of like a mindset to approach that and say, okay, how do I interrogate this and make sure I'm getting the best situation out of this?
Yeah, I think you're not alone with the problems that you're facing. And I think two words come to mind. It's digital transformation in your case. It's how quickly, and I'm sure that's already been addressed.
Yeah, that's what Cindy said.
That's exactly what it is. And even to the previous point when we brought up, what are we doing with fleet management and how do we reduce emissions with cars and how do we look at all of that. Most of the organizations that I come across on a day-to-day basis are trying to build tools in these particular spaces. So in your case, obviously you're an educational company. You have a lot of paper and a lot of waste as well at the same time. And it's really a case of how do you digitize your business super quick. And we're seeing a lot of that happening through the pandemic, where organizations had thought about digitizing their businesses and looking at a no paper route, but that happened very quickly during the pandemic, where they could afford to do it now when things slowed down and give it, and also realize that unless we evolve and change now, if you're providing trainings, for instances, gone are the days when you're printing out 1,000 pieces of paper and then couriering it out to so many students. The problem with that is you can't even scale anymore. So part of your reach and your scale is really through how do I make sure that I also get it on a phone at the same time that I have it at, it's pretty much training on demand that I need to get to. So you solve multiple problems through that route, and I don't need to coach you on digital transformation, but I think that's an area that we find more and more companies starting to move down, and where technology really needs to start to enable these solutions rather than just try and be innovative and creative. It's how do we start to enable various solutions with the tools that we're bringing out. Sorry, there's no magic bullet there, but it's really about just digitizing the business.
Yeah.
Daniel, one point on that. Sorry, one point on that. When you say digitizing the business, also doing that sustainably, I think is really important, because what most companies haven't focused on is let's go digital, but then there's a massive digital footprint that you have at the end of it with e-waste and consumption and electricity and power and also if you are hosting a lot of training and you have a lot of data that's you're running a lot of data in the cloud, for instance, how renewable are those data centers? What's the footprint of that? We've got Poppy from Oracle who knows this very well. But what's the footprint at the back end? Today, for every dollar that you spend in terms of buying infrastructure, you spend $9 powering it up and cooling it down from a digital standpoint. So how are we making sure that there's a windmill stuck at the back end to try and make sure it's renewably sourced? So those are the kinds of things that we need to look at. And one point I leave you with, which most people don't realize, but every one of us on the call today, creates about 600 kilograms of carbon dioxide every year, just purely through sending emails. So, do not reply all, don't just send out more than you need. And I think it's when you add it all up, you've got 2.9 billion email users across the world. And email is slowly creating about 3 to 4% of the global carbon footprint.
God.
It's never front of mind because we're all about digital transformation, but let's do it sustainably. So, we can talk about it. I don't want to rat hole, but that's really something important.
Do you know what? That's a really valid point for us at Ethical Reading, because there's lots of people in the sustainability team and we often copy everybody else in the team in just so they can see what's going on. And actually one new team member said, really, why are we doing this? It's not good because it clutters our brains and our inboxes, but actually environmentally is not the best thing to do. So you're right, we all probably do have to be a bit more conscious about these things that we just do automatically these days. I've got a comment here from Tracy Rawling Church, actually, who she's responded to Daniel. I don't know whether you've seen that in the chat, Daniel. She said, I compiled these top tips for efficient document design when there isn't an alternative to using paper. So if you have a look there, there's a paper reduction and sourcing link that you can follow. Tracy is actually one of the people behind the festival, and she's a very expert person in sustainability in Reading, so definitely worth checking that out. You there, Daniel?
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. Oh my God, I got on so many answers.
Yeah, who knew? So yeah, that's the whole point today. I'm glad it's working out. So I've got Willem's got his hand up. Sorry, I didn't see. Do you want to have a word now, Willem?
Yeah, just very quickly. I would ask someone, Daniel, in your company to see what the costs are to order all the paper, print it all, and dispatch it, and then see what the costs would be to digitalize most of it, because I think there's always people that need paper for whatever reason. But I think you've got a very quick and a business case that is again not necessarily it's sustainable, but it's also common sense for your company to make that transition, because if they're gonna save a lot of money with it, why wouldn't they do it?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the key points for anything to do with sustainability in business, that it's not just something that makes your business look better, it can actually be cost effective as well. And so it's actually making your business financially better. That's probably partly why you're called bottom line technologies, because it actually makes sense, doesn't it? You make things more efficient and that helps you save. I've got a question here from Ricardo Vetrunio. Sorry if I said that. Vetrunio, sorry if I'm pronouncing that horribly. So if you were in a totally different role or industry before, how did you make the transition to a sustainability position? So I know some of you are in sustainability positions, and some of you that's actually just part of what you do. But for those of you who are like Cindy, let's go to someone else. Sorry, let's go to Poppy, who is in a specific sustainability role. Do you want to answer that?
Look, I think it's really important in all companies that we have green teams. So if you're not in a sustainability position, even if you're part of the green teams, that's that is vital to the overall sustainability agenda that's going on in a company. Obviously, I am in a sustainability position, and I have been for the last 5 years. But what I will say is I rely on those who aren't in a sustainability position to keep me in check and make sure that I've still got my finger on the pulse and I'm listening to what employees want and what customers want. Because I think it's really easy to become blinkered. I can walk around the buildings prior to COVID and think, yeah, this is running really efficiently. But actually, it's when the employees say, you know, someone like Willem who says, well, why are we still using plastic here? Or why are these lights on at this time of day when there's no one in that part of the office? And those are the things that you rely on. What I would say is if you're really passionate and you do want to transition entirely into sustainability, then I think now's the time. The green jobs market is booming. You know, we're entering what they're calling the decade of delivery. There is such a focus on sustainability at the moment. And actually, the World Green Business Council said recently that workplace professionals are at the front line of the climate emergency and can lead those needed efficiencies to make sure our buildings are running efficiently, make sure we're commuting to work responsibly. And I think if you take, you know, if you're passionate and you take that forward, I think you really are going to see the benefits. We all are, because we've got to work as a collective to see those benefits. But definitely, I would say now's the time. There's such a focus on it that it's really easy. If you ever want to chat to someone who already works in sustainability to find out perhaps the different routes you could take, then I would just reach out and ask. And I'm sure Ethical Reading could facilitate that.
Yeah, so yeah, and if anyone would like to speak to any of our panelists, please do drop us an email and we'd be happy to put you in touch, no problem at all. And there's always LinkedIn as well, which is a great way to link directly with people. So yeah, can I ask Aki a little bit about that? Because I know that you used to work in roles that were totally unrelated to sustainability, and then now your whole business is about sustainability and you've set that up yourself. Do you want to just talk a bit about how you made that transition and why?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Catherine. Yes, I spent about 20 years working in tech. So maybe that's why I was so quick to jump to digital transformation for Daniel. So I lived and breathed tech for a very long time. In my case, I don't have a wonderful story which says that, you know, why I moved across to sustainability. But what I was always keen on was looking at the next big thing. And that's why what Poppy is saying is so relevant. I do feel sustainability today is where certain parts of, from a tech analogy, you know, cloud was about 4 years back. And I do feel that it's just about starting to pick up. And if you get into the space now, you'll be really riding this wave. So I was always on the lookout for what's next. And my job was to try and drive cloud revenue. And to differentiate cloud, my day job became, how do I make sure that when I was at Microsoft, with no disrespect to Poppy at Oracle, you know, how do we make our clients move across to Microsoft versus Oracle and IBM and Amazon Web Services and Google, etc., and really talk about a green story at the back end and talk about, you know, technology for good. And this happened about 3 to 4 years back. So it was very early days. And during that stage, I got very involved in the fact that it's more than climate change. It's more than, you know, one area of sustainability. It's about inequalities. If you don't educate people better, there is no way they care about climate change, especially in emerging markets, for instance. So what are we doing around inequalities, gender diversity? I worked in cyber tech 2 years back, and the gender diversity ratio was less than 5%. It was terrible. And, you know, I have a boy and a girl, and I feel very strongly about the fact that both of them go to good schools, and my daughter won't get the same chances as my son purely because she's a girl. And for me, that doesn't, I can't accept that as a parent. So all of these reasons came together. The fact that I experienced a lot of the fact that sustainability is a big area that, you know, the world is starting to move towards. And the final turning point was, I do feel that sustainability has been such a critical area, but never given the, you know, the spotlight that it deserves. It's always been a separate team. And I do feel that things have had to change now. And the way we are trying to talk about it is, you can't really be focused as a sustainability professional, but whatever you do, you need to bring sustainability into your line of work. And I think that makes the jobs of people like Poppy a lot easier, who are focused on sustainability. They're the specialists, but you need the generalists to start to imbibe sustainability in everything you do, from product development to resource management to fleet management to buildings to everything, supply chain, etc. So you got to bring that in. And I think that's where the opportunity really opens up for you, Ricardo. You don't have to go and, let's go for 3 years and certify on 4 courses. You don't need to do that anymore. Start the way Willem has gone ahead and done. Start small in your little area, show success, start to scale that out. And I know 3-4 years back, if you did this, you might not have got a lot of support. But today, if you said, you know what, we're going to try and change the brand equity, we're going to reduce customer churn, we're going to improve customer loyalty, make sure that employee attrition reduces, start talking about business indicators and say, and our brand reputation improves, we get access to sustainability linked loans and what have you. All of that, I guarantee nobody in your business is going to turn around and say that, oh, you're doing the wrong thing, can you focus on your job? That's not going to happen. So a job plus and sustainability is the way I would start. And then, yes, please reach out to all of us on the panel. We all have different experiences. And anything you need in terms of how we've gone through that journey in detail, we can go through it.
Yeah. So actually, let me just mention at this point, so all of these people who are on our panel today, they're all ethical Reading sustainability champions. And they're people that have just come forward to say that they are passionate about sustainability and making their organizations more environmentally sustainable. And so we're really keen to connect with more people. So if you feel like that, but also in some cases, it may be that that's your aspiration. It might be that you're not doing that now, but you would like to, and feel free to join us. At the moment, we're just connecting through a Facebook group, and we have gatherings around every month where we come together and we have a speaker and we just get the chance to talk together. But yeah, if you would like to join us, then drop us an email. I'll come with the details a bit later on, but might be just a good point to mention that this is an opportunity for everybody to join in. We're not an exclusive little group. We want more people to join us, and we really want to empower people that are passionate about this to make a bigger difference. Can I go to you, Tina? You joined us a little bit after the beginning, so you didn't get probably the best intro. But your situation is really different from everybody else, because actually you set up your own little micro business, and the whole thing about your business is more social sustainability, isn't it? You are environmentally sustainable, but it's about creating a positive social impact, which is also part of sustainability. Do you want to just talk a little bit about the ethos of your business and why?
Yeah, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, okay, all right, that's good. Yes, it's a community cafe. I started to talk to Catalyst approached me last year, and I ran cookery classes and summer clubs around Reading, and they were like, oh, you interested in having some money to set up your own cafe? I was like, yeah, sure, why not?
Oh, wow.
Never ran a cafe before. I came from an educational background, and so yeah, it was an interesting journey, but and then we were kind of getting into the funding and everything, and then obviously all this like doom and gloom happened. And so we just carried on like crazy people, and but as I was setting up and like sourcing ingredients and figuring out the menu and everything, I realized like it's really difficult to stay in the mindset that I was in of like trying to keep it locally sourced but keeping it affordable, because we're in Deep Park, we're in an estate. It's like, I mean, like, if it's a community cafe, it has to be for the community. At the same time, I could not physically cook something where I know that, you know, the meat came from like, you know, somewhere far away, and like the animals may not have been treated like the way they should be, and that kind of thing. So it's like getting that balance right, you know, and it's I still don't think I've got it quite right, but I'm trying. And yeah, so I think that was quite a big challenge. And also, I mean, we're trying, businesses, cafes, restaurants create so much waste. Like there is so much, it's unbelievable. And so I was just trying to think like, you know, what can we do to reduce that waste? Because at home, like, you know, what I teach my children and what we practice at home, I wanted to carry it on in my business. I thought, well, why not, you know? And so I was thinking, okay, maybe if we try and make everything from scratch in the cafe, if we've got the facilities, then that would reduce the waste. So we wouldn't be getting everything in like lots of small packs and creating more plastic and that kind of thing. So we're trying really hard. And I think people are starting to get it. So like our meat is locally sourced, and you know, I'm trying to advertise that, and like, yeah, we're on our way to making our own bread and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's a plan. And obviously, like, because of the whole COVID thing, we were allowed to have people in the cafe, but I didn't feel comfortable having our classes in the cafe. So we've had like artists and creative writers and candle makers and all sorts of people who want to run classes here for the community. But yeah, maybe like when this kind of passes and it's a little bit safer, then we can have those classes here. But
when you say class, you mean cookery classes for children?
No, art classes. So
Okay.
art classes.
I
wouldn't be teaching art classes. I can't draw. No, it's a local artist, and people approached me as well. So creative writer. Candle maker, lady who we sell local Tilehurst honey as well, and she grew up on D Road, and so she was like, yes, let's like sell it here. So I'm the only place in Tilehurst that sells her honey. It's Tilehurst honey. And so she was going to come in and like do talks on like bees and honey and that kind of thing, and just like make it a real buzzing place. But because we can do that, what we created instead, until we can do that, we will eventually, but what we have been doing is trying to make it a space where everybody feels welcome. So whereas before, like it was either exclusive or a bit cliquey or that kind of thing. Like, so what we got to, I was really proud of, because we had the local teenagers coming in, we had like the older people around the corner coming in, and they're all chatting, and like it was I've made it so it's like disabled access as well, so they can, like, you know, we can rearrange furniture, they can come in. We had mums and babies, and it was really starting to get buzzing, you know. So we've made that at the moment, so we've achieved that. We're now doing takeaway again, but you know, we'll get there. You
said it sounds so cool. I really want to go there. It just sounds like somewhere that is going to be a really nice place to hang out, and I really love that inclusive element.
It's becoming really beautiful. It's becoming like what I imagined it to be. And like, I think, you know, it's small steps. I can't do everything that I want to do all in one go, especially at the moment. But I mean, like, we're talking to the right people. We're talking to Food for Families, and the little green space outside, we're going to make it into like just a beautiful green space where like children can sit, even adults can sit, and we'll have like a frame there with like plants growing on it.
Nice.
I'm hoping to like we compost our food waste as well. We don't have like a space for compost. At the moment it's going in my 2 compost bins in the garden.
Okay.
But eventually, like, I'm hoping to like get some compost bins and then reuse that. And
oh, that'd be amazing. And then imagine if you could actually grow some salad leaves and things in the compost produced from the waste in the cafe. That's the
plan. That's the plan. So yeah, I'm working with Sharon from Food for Families, and those people that know those things of what to do.
Do you know what, this is the really cool thing in Reading. We've got so many people that know so much about sustainability, and there's actually a huge network. It's a bit disconnected, but if you ask the right person, you can definitely find out someone who knows someone.
And they're lovely people. They're really lovely people. Even if they can't help, they know other people that can.
Absolutely.
So it is a good connection. It really is.
And that, to be honest, I think that's so important. And we can't all know everything, but as long as we're networked, then we can help each other out. And I think that's what we're really trying to do here, to actually enable that.
It was really, I mean, I went to the RSA event where I met a lot of people, and we were talking, it was just before the lockdown, and it was talking about sustainability and what we're doing in Reading, and connected with so many people there. And that was a really, and I learned so much, and all those people I'm still in touch with. And so it'd be nice to keep in touch with more people. And if you have any ideas, throw them my way.
Yeah.
and I'd be happy to take them on board.
Cool. Thank you. So let me ask Cindy something though, on the same social side of things. I've seen that you do a lot with refugees at Grant Thornton. Do you want to talk a bit about that? It's something that's quite interesting, a different angle that I wasn't expecting from Grant Thornton. It's given me a whole new insight into what the business is about.
Yeah, of course. So this is something that I've only personally just started to get involved with, but as a business that Grant Thornton is really passionate about. And I think we've actually recently been recognised by business in the community for our work with refugees, which was really exciting to see that actually, you know, it's not just a corporate thing that we're doing, it's something that's actually being recognised as actually helpful. So essentially, what we've been doing is our company works with a charity called Breaking Barriers. I'm not sure if you've heard of them, but they're a London-based charity which aims to support refugees into meaningful employment, and they do that in various ways. So I'm not sure if you're aware, but until a refugee achieves a right to work statement, they're not allowed to even apply to jobs, and so that can be really difficult. They've literally got £30 to live off a day. Oh no, £30 to live off a week. Until they get that valid, you know, right to work to actually be able to apply for the job. It's really difficult. And then obviously once they come around to applying for jobs, they don't have the necessary, even if they've been really successful in their home country and they've had to flee for whatever reason, they might not necessarily have the same like recognised qualifications, or they might just not be familiar with the UK job application process. So a lot of what Breaking Barriers does is it runs workshops to support people prior to achieving that status, and then also once they've got that status into getting jobs. So it teaches them about, you know, how to write CVs, for example, like what a UK employer would look for, because something that I think a lot of us may take for granted is just the fact that in the UK, and especially this is on the rise now, employers tend to look for skills more than necessarily like this specific qualification. So while you might not have a recognised UK qualification, the skills you would have learned in your previous jobs, even if that's something more menial, like then that those skills are still applicable. And so I think we've run workshops to kind of talk through things like that. Also like interview skills. A workshop that I recently attended, we were just going through the scenario of calling up an employer to find out about the status of your application, because some people are just don't understand the benefits of picking up the phone, and also may not feel comfortable doing so. So in that safe environment, you get partnered one-on-one or one-on-one refugee with two people to give them that opportunity to practice like a fake scenario. And yeah, it's just many different things like that. And I think the other thing is just kind of offering work placements in our business, obviously still having to go through the relevant channels to make sure that person is going to be able to do the role that they're coming into. But we actually had a really nice story of someone that came in on this placement offered to a refugee, and they did so well that at the end of the 6 months placement, I think it was maybe 3 months, they were actually offered a permanent job.
Oh, wow.
And so it's just kind of giving people that opportunity to either have that experience that they can then transfer into a different job, or actually, you know, if they're really great, then, you know, we'll keep them. And yeah, I think that's kind of a very high level summary.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that's something that people probably, when you think about sustainability, most people, they don't think about that, but actually it is part of it. I think, can we just have Akhil back momentarily just to talk about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, just a very brief top line summary. You still there, Akhil? Oh, there you are.
Yeah, I'm here. That's a very open question.
No, but I just mean, because I think you actually highlighted the other day, there are specific ones that are social. Most of them are about the environment. But the thing also, I think the interesting thing is that I thought, to be honest, before I got to know a little bit about it, that it was about sustainable development in countries that were lagging behind and needed to be lifted up. But it's actually not. It's actually something that's much more relevant to everybody, actually, every organisation and all over the world. Do you want to just sort of try and put it in a nutshell?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So maybe for those that don't have context on the Sustainable Development Goals, and I'll just take a minute or two to explain this. Back in 2000, at the turn of the millennium, we had the United Nations got together and came out with something called the Millennium Development Goals, the MDGs. They were about 8 goals, and they really targeted the emerging and developing markets. So it was the usual suspects, Brazil, Russia, India, China, etc., and a lot of the African and Latin American countries. But what happened as a result of that 15-year plan of the MDGs is that the developed world went ahead and continued as is. And by the time we hit 2015, about 5 years back, we found the UN found that not much has changed. We're obviously trying to improve the developing countries, but the developed world needs to take more responsibility. So they brought 193 countries together in September 2015 and asked everyone to sign something of a mandate saying we all pledge to try and make improvements in multiple areas. And those multiple areas are canvassed across 17 different goals and 169 specific targets. So it gets quite detailed. And each one of those goals cover different areas, and climate change is one of those goals. So it's goal number 13. But there are multiple other areas, from food waste to poverty to healthcare to gender diversity to education, life on land, life underwater, partnerships, and what have you. It just carries on inequality, innovation, infrastructure. So I think it's been touted as the world's largest sustainability blueprint, or the largest sustainability program. And I think what's wonderful about it is that even though it's very philanthropic when you read about it, there is a marriage between the philanthropy and the vision that the United Nations has set for everyone, and what businesses can do in every one of these areas. So what are we trying to improve with healthcare, in our workspaces? So we have pregnant women in the workplace. So the UN, and I'll give you an example, they say something like, reduce malnutrition and reduce, I think it is death rates of children under 5. And most organizations would look at a statement like that and say, I have nothing to do with it. But that's not entirely true, because I worked in large organizations and we have pregnant women in the workplace and we're feeding them cookies and donuts rather than something fresh and something which is better for their baby. So are we looking at, nutritious diets for those that are vulnerable in our workplace, for instance? And as a result, the mother spends most of her waking days during a pregnancy at work. And then she has a better pregnancy and she'll have a better delivery in all likelihood. It improves the chances, and a baby that's going to be stronger and is going to be on term. So all those things factor in, and businesses can influence all these stages. It's just, are we providing a sofa for somebody to put her feet up because she is going to be tired? Are we providing flexible work options? So all these kinds of questions do come up. And I think it's great for businesses to just canvas what they're doing across these sustainable development goals. And really, it's a lift a mirror to your face exercise and see where you are strong and where you're not so strong. And then we really encourage organizations to talk about it. This is how we're doing well, and this is where we're trying to improve, and we're all trying to move forward in that. So sorry, a little longer than you expected, but hopefully that gives you an explanation of why the UN SDGs are so relevant.
Yeah, it does. I think it's very useful to know that, actually. Sorry, I've got a question. Oh, sorry, Cindy, for clarity. That breaking barriers, the refugee support? Thank you, and sounds amazing and helpful.
Yeah, the charity's called Breaking Barriers.
Yeah,
and they're based in London, but I think the workshops are specifically run. I think they run it with multiple organisations. We're just one of the organisations that they work with.
Yeah, so you have developed a partnership with them, or they still come in and help you with what you're doing?
I think Grant Thornton have a partnership with Breaking Barriers. So when we do a workshop, it's all Grant Thornton people with one person from Breaking Barriers who then links us for us to provide the workshop to the refugees, but we'll do the workshop for them, if that makes sense. But I think they are partnered with other businesses aside from us.
Do you work with Reading Refugee Support Group here in Reading?
I've not heard of them, but that's actually really useful to know, because we're looking at how we can do more for refugees in the Thames Valley specifically, because Broken Back, I think, are a London charity. They're just able to work with us at the moment virtually because of the climate, which has been good, because you can increase the support for
there's a huge number of refugees. Actually, we're called a city of sanctuary, and there's a huge number of refugees that have been settled here. Actually, during the pandemic, I know the George Hotel was turned over to be a home for refugees, and Reading Refugee Support Group were actually supporting some of them. So yeah, definitely would be good to engage with them.
I'd love find out. Send me some further details.
Yeah, definitely, because I think there's a lot of people in Reading already that would probably benefit from that, and they are getting support with things like providing things they need for their homes and stuff. But actually, if they could actually become more self-sufficient, that would be much more powerful, and that is sustainable then, isn't it? When people are actually finding a way to get a foothold in the country, not just getting charity to help them to scrape by.
100%.
So yeah, hopefully that would be a good connection.
Yeah.
Poppy, I'd like to come to you. Nobody's coming up with exciting questions, so guys, please do either put your hand up or put a comment in the comment box, and let's throw some more questions at the panelists. But there's something I asked Poppy yesterday in our technical rehearsal that actually I thought it was a silly, flippant question, just getting her to practice on screen, but actually turned out quite interesting. So you used to work at the Oracle Shopping Centre, and now you work at Oracle IT Tech Corporation, and I was asking you, what is the difference when it comes to sustainability at the Oracle and Oracle? What's the difference?
I'll see if I can remember what I said yesterday.
Oh, just wing it.
If I can say it as good as I did yesterday. But yeah, okay, so for everyone's benefit, I used to work for Hammerson, who are the landlord of the Oracle Shopping Centre in Reading, and my role there was the environmental and community coordinator. So that was where I was really balancing the operational controls of running the shopping centre and getting involved with local charities in the community. And after being there for about 18 months, I moved to Oracle Corporation. So the major difference is that one of those roles was public facing. Being in a shopping centre, it's all about the public perception, looking after your tenants, and it was really about running the centre in an efficient manner, which is really hard to balance. For example, when it's really cold in winter and you want to encourage people to come into the shopping centre and shop, but you have door air curtains blowing hot air into a centre that, you know, has open ventilation, you're running something for it to go out the window. It was literally a waste of energy, but customers had to feel warm when they entered the centre, and that was a really difficult balance. You know, sitting in a room as a young female at the start of her career, trying to ask 6 men who are experienced engineers to turn off door curtains and to try and justify it is really challenging. And those are some of the problems that I was coming up against regularly. But it was a great place. It was a great place to learn. The shopping centre runs very efficiently, and it has lots of controls in place to help balance that. At Oracle Corporation, it's very similar. We are looking to run our buildings efficiently, but this time we're the tenant, we're not the landlord in a lot of our buildings. So it's about how do we work with our landlords to make changes to buildings for the better, so that we are really providing our employees with a workspace which is not only comfortable and productive, but sustainable. And, you know, we're a global company. We manage over, I think, 25 million square feet globally. That's a huge amount of space to run in a responsible manner. And to make sure that our employees are really walking into buildings that are meeting their expectations in terms of how are we recycling, what food are they being offered in the canteen, you know, how warm are they? Are they, you know, is the air conditioning in one part of the building freezing some employees and another they're absolutely boiling? But those are the day-to-day problems that we have to combat. And I think COVID actually poses a new challenge to that, because as more people in the future work from home, we have to balance how empty our buildings may be. At the moment, I should say pre-COVID, we could say, well, we know there will be 100 people sitting on that floor of the building. Now we don't know how many people are going to come to the office. So we might only need a third of that floor. So we're going to have to potentially put controls in place to manage that efficiently.
Yeah.
And it was very similar in the shopping centre. You don't know how many people are going to walk through the door. So you don't know how many people are going to use the taps and the toilet facilities. You don't know how much water consumption you're going to be using. And it's just continually monitoring your data. I think my biggest advice to anyone who's working within buildings and trying to make improvements is to really understand how your building performs and get a really good handle of your data, so that you can constantly manage and constantly adjust to the number of people walking through the door, their needs. And throughout the seasons, those needs change as well. So it's a continual thing to balance. But yeah, I mean, it's very similar challenges working in a shopping centre versus working in other buildings. But I think definitely the biggest thing working in the shopping centre was the public perception. And I think as well now going forward, there will be more demand from the public to see physical benefits to the environment in our public spaces. And we also see those in our workspaces as well. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, hopefully that the public demand thing definitely is going to be happening, because I think particularly during the first lockdown, when everything went still and the cars stopped, and then suddenly people noticed the air was cleaner and there was more wildlife around, I think it really was a wake-up call, wasn't it? And it did make people that don't normally really think about those things realize, wow, what are we doing to our world?
And I think the biggest thing as well that we all have to remember is, for years now, climate change has been this invisible threat. It's something that has been spoken about, but we've not necessarily always seen it, or been in a position of privilege where we haven't felt the impacts of climate change. We haven't been a victim of fires and floods and droughts and all those kind of things. You don't necessarily see it. But I think what COVID has proved is that the public and the community of the world has demonstrated a capacity to respond positively and responsibly when they understand the risks posed by an invisible threat. And if we can, take on what we've learned in how we've responded to COVID and apply that to climate change, I'm really hopeful that in future we will be able to make, positive collective action to put right some of the damages as a result of climate change before we go too far.
Yeah, it's really interesting because there was another Ethical Reading event within the Reading Climate Festival yesterday talking about the planning system and how that might be able to help with climate change control. And one of the speakers actually was saying that he used to work in the Middle East and Africa, and actually people were very on board there with measures to reduce impact on climate change. They were really into carbon reduction because they were really feeling it there. They were noticing every degree of difference, and normal people were totally on board with this. Whereas I think in the UK, we've been a bit blasé about it. And yeah, we have the odd weird winter or the odd summer that's extra dry, but we haven't really taken on board, I think, quite how things are changing. I think even just this year, people are starting to say, oh, why are my flowers coming out at different times? What's going on? And people are starting gradually to notice. But I think it's making that connection between actually what we do day to day and that is a huge thing, which actually just makes me think about the COVID stuff, because there's a lot of disposable PPE that's being produced and disposed of now. Also, like, for example, Tina, in your cafe, I don't know if you deal with this, but where there's takeaways going on, there's a lot of disposable plastics going on. Things that previously were reusable are becoming disposable again. It's creating a whole new level of challenge that's going against what was positively happening in the past. Have you got any thoughts on that?
with the disposables and stuff, what I've noticed is that the wholesalers have really upped their game with the compostable disposable stuff.
That's good.
Yeah, they really have. It's still a bit of a pain because obviously, like, people are not going to go home and compost their disposable packaging. Their disposable compostable packaging at home. Not many people will. It's still going to landfill, but it's better than, like, it's still going into landfill, but it's better than what it was before. At least it's not all the plastics and stuff going into landfill. It will eventually compost down. but it's not perfect. We are still using the reusables, so we're just doing it in a safe way as much as possible. But the government has advice to cafes and restaurants and stuff has been to stop using reusable the drink holders, and the bottles and the Tupperware or anything like that. They said just don't use it because of the whole COVID thing. But I mean, like, we've figured out a safe system of working, and RBC have like said, yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Good.
But anybody else, any other cafes or restaurants that have like read the advice for COVID for cafes and restaurants have just stopped it completely.
Wow.
So
yeah, I've seen some really depressing things, like when the pub started to do takeaways, pubs that were previously all glass and they didn't have any plastic disposables, suddenly they were giving out plastic disposable cups with cling film on the top, and at least the cup is recyclable, but the film definitely isn't, and probably people just chuck it in the nearest bin. And oh my goodness, I found that so depressing. And
well, I mean, I think it's challenging these places as well. I mean, there's Starbucks, you can sit in, well, not now, but you can sit in and drink your coffee, hot chocolate, pumpkin, whatever, and sorry Starbucks,
pumpkin chai latte.
but you could sit in and drink those things, but because of COVID, you had to use their disposable cups.
Oh, right.
Like, but the thing is, well, there's no sense in that. It's like you stick it in the dishwasher on a high heat. That's absolutely fine. Exactly. There's no transferring of like germs or anything.
No.
It's like, but they're using the pandemic as an excuse to just use more and more and more disposables. So yeah, I think it's a lame excuse. It really, really is. People, the amount of excuses I've heard because of COVID, and you're like, okay, what's the reasoning behind it? And they're like, oh no, it's because of COVID. And it's like, there is no reason. You're just saying COVID at me.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got a hand up here. Sarah, do you want to ask Tina a question?
Yeah, I was just going to agree really with the point about it, and not even COVID really, but I think a lack of understanding being an excuse. So a long time ago, I think it was at Glastonbury, they first started, you could buy a reusable steel, made out of recycled steel pint cup. And I bought one some years ago and I thought, well, do you know what? I'm going to carry that around when I go out in the evenings, because so many places of an evening, you know, they'll only serve you from a certain time onwards in plastic cups. And I thought, I just don't want to be part of that. So I'd take it around and, well, can you put it in that, please? And most places, absolutely no problem. And then very occasionally you'd get somewhere that would just flat out refuse. Nope, can't. And this was way before COVID. Nope, can't put it in your cup. And I'd sort of say, well, can you explain why? And there was one that, oh, it's just the rules. But
there is no reason why.
Exactly. And they'd come out, oh, well, because we're a music venue. I'd say, well, you're literally the only place. And this was in a downstairs part of the bar. So I said, okay, well, in which case I'm just not going to buy a beer. Walked up the stairs, same pub, walked up the stairs, went to their bar upstairs, bought a beer in a glass. They wouldn't fill it up in my cup potentially, but I'd bring it down and bring a glass down. And I thought, well, surely having a glass down here where you've got music playing is more dangerous than just filling up. You wouldn't even have to touch it. So yeah, I think it's just when they don't know what a reason is, but they sort of think, oh, there must be a reason we can't do it, so I'd better just say no. And you think, yeah, I don't think a lack of understanding is really an excuse for things like that.
No, it's always worth questioning it, but whether you get anywhere, I don't know.
And there's also things I've seen, some places are doing a contact-free reusable coffee cup service. So you take your reusable coffee cup, you take the lid off, you give them the cup, they just leave it on the counter, they pour the drink into that, you put your lid on. So there's no contact at all. It's actually the safest option.
That's
so
exactly what we've done here as well.
They could put the beer in a cup and transfer it, no problem. Is that what you're doing as well? That's cool.
That's exactly what we're doing. So we've got a separate tray. We've got a COVID tray. So we people just put their bits in there, and then we do it without touching. So yeah.
That's really interesting. This is something at the farmers market where I work. I've found that it's been quite distressing over this period because there were quite a lot of traders that were moving away from plastics. Sarah knows about this because she shops there, and you were quite excited about that, weren't you, the way that they were moving? So there were loose sausages and bacon available from Dews Meadow Farm, people bringing their own containers. They were putting it into the containers. They're not doing that anymore. Sorry. So yeah, sorry, I've got Willem asking me something. Yeah, Emily's question has already been answered. So I was already asking it when she was asking it. So I think we've done that. Emily, are you happy that we've got the answer to your question? I'm actually speaking about it now. So yeah, so that's something that has stopped. And there was another trader, Yogi Mama's Indian Kitchen, who she was saying that we are proudly plastic free, and that they were actually asking people to bring their own containers to put her coriander chutney in. And now they have switched back to it all being in plastic. So it does feel like we're taking a step back, and I just do wonder how long it's going to take us to move back. But I think as long as the plastics are recyclable, I know it's not perfect, but at least it's better than them actually just being disposed of in the bin. And I think it's just about thinking, what's the least worst thing that we can do at the moment in the circumstances to keep things going, but do it safely, but minimize the impact. You know, there is going to be a negative impact, but can we cut that down to a minimum? Rob, are you still there? Rob seems to have gone very quiet. I don't know if he's dropped off, because I know that he.
No, I'm organising my third meeting of the day.
Oh, sorry, Rob. I just wondered if you wanted to ask one of the questions that you had lined up.
Yes. What it was but we've heard about micro changes and sort of macro changes, and I just wondered if people in different organisations and working at different levels, as it were. Where they found it's easier to, well, the differences, say, between changing micro changes, getting rid of the plastic cups, and the macro changes, which is changing over your energy supplier or the whole approach.
So
as Poppy said about, the much bigger ones about how you manage an estate of, it might be several. Well,
so you're asking, is it easier to do the small changes, or is it actually easier to start with the big changes and actually try to make a major impact?
I think it's the difference between top down and bottom up.
Yeah.
And of course, you can do both. I mean, it doesn't have to be exclusive. Yeah.
Anyone would like to answer that on the panel?
I'm happy to answer that.
Thanks, Poppy.
I've sort of had experience of sort of starting off earlier in my career and pushing for those, I suppose, micro changes that you're referring to. And now I suppose I'm in a position to influence and push for some of those larger changes. And I'd wish I could say it's easier. It doesn't get easier. Having worked in sustainability for over 5 years now, I think, and I'm sure the rest of the panelists will agree with me, it's a battle, it's a constant battle, and sometimes it feels really uphill. But I think there have definitely been times, and I think Willem touched on this earlier, where you kind of have to pick your battles. Sometimes it's really easy to push through small changes like plastic and waste changes and all that kind of thing. But I think the one thing I would say is, I don't think either of them are easier, but they're absolutely worth it. Just keep pushing and keep asking the questions and keep challenging. I always try to frame everything in a positive manner when I'm asking for any change. That would be my other big key bit of advice is, if you can frame it positively, it tends to go over better. But yeah, I think I've definitely found it's just as challenging, whether you're pushing just to remove 10 plastic cups from a table next to a water machine, or you're asking for them to switch to a renewable energy tariff. It feels equally as challenging. But I think I was on the call yesterday where we launched our strategy, and someone was making a very key point that all those small changes add up, and it's those behaviour changes. And if we keep pushing for those small ones, then I think in time, the bigger ones, it's a bit like a domino effect. I think they'll all start to fall into place.
Yeah, and I think one thing I would say is that I've heard some people talking about greenwashing lately and saying that some top decision makers at large companies are worried about making small changes because they feel that people will accuse them of greenwashing. From that point of view, sometimes making a bigger change might actually be more palatable, but sometimes possibly the smaller changes are actually easier to bring in if you are a top decision maker. But then I think what I've gathered from talking to people is the most important thing is to actually communicate about it. So don't sort of claim, hey, we're sustainable because we've taken the plastic out of our something. Do you know, it's actually sort of saying we're making small steps. This is one of the things that we're doing. And I think then people start to respect that and feel that this is a company they want to be behind and support. I don't know if any of you have got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you talk about the difference between micro and macro, and I think part of it does depend on your position. And it's kind of sad in a way for Poppy to say it doesn't get easier either one.
Sorry, I didn't mean that to sound so negative.
No, you are right, you do need to keep pushing it. And I think sometimes with the smaller things, what you have to remember is people aren't always going to get on board. The thing about smaller things is it does require individuals to buy into it. So if you want individuals to recycle more, you can talk about it, you can send emails, you can put posters telling people what they can and can't recycle. Some people are always just going to put some stuff that's recyclable in the bin. And so I think an important part of it is kind of keeping an open dialogue, talking about it, as you say, communicating to just get individuals on board. I can actually think of an example where we had that in our business when we started making some small changes just in our Oxford office, which is small, maybe 20 to 50 people, not quite sure, but you know, not a large office. And just by having people in the kitchen at lunchtime talking about that, a group of a couple of us that were more focused on environment and sustainable, talking about, you know, reusable containers and just showcasing. So if you buy something from the shop, buying it in a reusable container and then washing out afterwards, and someone was like, oh, why are you doing that? And then you have that dialogue. And I noticed a couple of the other people who hadn't been involved in the conversation but kind of been sitting there, listened in, and they started bringing in stuff in reusable containers following that, because they see leading that example. And similarly, I went mostly vegan but vegetarian, like 100%, and around about the time that a lot of the climate crisis stuff started coming out, and just kind of talking a bit about that and how you do it in a sustainable way and things like that. Again, it gets the dialogue going, so you can have the conversations, and again you see other people going, oh, that's a good point, and there's a way to do it that is more sustainable. But people start seeing that, and then a couple of other people said, okay, I actually went home last night and I had a conversation with my partner and we're going vegetarian 2 days a week now because of that conversation that we had in the kitchen yesterday. And you're going to get other people that are going to make a fuss and make fun of you for doing it, but actually it's just those small changes and getting some people on board and making a little change does count. Like, all of that stuff does add up over time.
Yeah. Let me just cut you there, Cindy. Thank you very much for that. So we're going to start winding down shortly, but I've just got one final question from Emily, which is related to her previous one. So she said, as the Zero Waste Society at the university, we've tried to implement reusable cups and tackle food waste, but have always been confronted by people higher up in the uni. They say it would cost too much, etc. Does anyone have any advice on how to actually create action and change? Can any of you answer that?
I can give it a go from someone who works with the facilities teams, who are likely to be the people who are managing purchase of your reusable cups and managing the food waste streams. I would ask if they would be willing to sit down with you, and I would ask them how much it costs them to purchase reusable cups. I'd ask them what's the weight of those reusable cups, whether they can provide that to you in kilograms or whatever. And then I would ask if they would be willing, perhaps with someone who works in sustainability and you know, would be able to assist with this, or actually if you Google it, you'd probably be able to do it yourself. I would calculate how much they're generating in CO2 on the purchase of their reusable cups, and I would ask them if that's in line with their sustainability strategy as a
cool,
and how that's contributing to it. And the first thing, my biggest bit of advice was always come to them with data and numbers and have it to them on paper and say, well, you're spending this much on plastic cups every year. You could invest in X amount by providing everyone with a reusable cup. Perhaps when they join uni as a fresher, everyone gets a cup. and it would save you this much in CO2 emissions, and it would save this much in terms of plastic, and therefore it would contribute to the university's sustainability targets and objectives. And I would try and frame it like that.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. I've got a comment here. Oh, sorry, one quick one from Tina. Sorry, kind of random question, but I was just wondering if any of you had links with Reading College, the one that's linked with Activate Learning. I think they'd massively benefit from as much incentive to become more sustainable as possible. Do any of you have connections with Activate Learning?
I have. So I know the daughter of the CEO of the Activate Learning in Oxford. I think they also run I'm not sure if they also run Reading one, but they'll definitely have links because they're also an Activate Learning business. I'm not sure how involved I could get, but I could try and get you in touch if that would help.
Yeah, so Tia, do you want to unmute yourself and speak a moment before we... Are you still there? Oh, I don't know if she's just... Oh no, Tia, hello. Do you want to have a quick word before we wrap up?
Yeah, so I was just wondering, because there's a lot of things that like they were trying to do, I guess. They're very like good at promoting their like goals and stuff and trying to get everyone on board and stuff. But I did feel that they were lacking in like sustainability goals. So yeah, I was just wondering if anyone had an interest in joining the college, because I know that they definitely would be good at implementing things, but maybe they just need that direction.
Maybe Akil would be able to get involved, because he does help organisations meet their sustainability goals. If they are actually up for that, maybe he would be a good person to engage with.
Yeah, Tia, happy to take this offline and get in touch with you and see how we can help them. Not a problem. That's what we do day in and day out. Just come in and try and look at what are they doing currently and what can they do and how can they bridge that gap. So more than happy to.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
So thank you all. I think we probably need to start wrapping up now because we're coming up to the time. So I just want to go through something very briefly. Hold on. Yep. So first of all, who are the sustainability champions? So as you've gathered, they are all people within local organisations that are passionate about sustainability. If that's you, if you feel that you would like to be able to do more to make your organisation more sustainable, please do join us. You can just drop us an email at sustainability@ethicalreading.org.uk. At some point, we're hoping to get an actual forum online. At the moment, we've got a Facebook forum where people can interact. But we also have gatherings every so often, more sort of like once a month or every couple of months, where we come together, normally have a speaker and then interact with each other. But we're going to be having one soon where we're going to be just doing a session like this, where we can just share problems with each other and just get support from each other, because that's one of the most powerful things that we can probably do, is just connecting people to learn from each other. So please do come forward if you would like to be part of that. Second thing, Akil, who is one of our panel today, he's actually offering a really great course on driving sustainability leadership. And it's actually for people who are not a top decision maker, but would like to start making a difference in sustainability within their organisation. Normally it's £297, but it's actually free at the moment. So if you would like to sign up, just go to academy.earth51.com and you can sign up for a free course. Once you've completed it, you get a certificate, and they're going to plant a tree for every one of the modules you complete. There's 3 modules. So you will actually be helping to plant trees and studying this. So it sounds like a no-brainer to me. So please do sign up for that if you're interested. And so next, if you would like to find out more about what we're doing at Ethical Reading, just go to our website. And if you want to find out more specifically about our sustainability work, go to programs and then sustainability, and you can find out more. And at the bottom of any page, you can link to our mailing list sign up, so you can just keep up to date with what we're doing. You can like us on social media, just look for @EthicalReading. This video, among with many others, is going to be featured on our YouTube channel, so you can subscribe to that. And also we're going to be putting this on the Reading Culture Live website afterwards, if you want to look back at that, along with lots of other videos from the festival. And so yeah, finally, again, if you would like to join our sustainability champions, email us at sustainability@ethicalreading.org.uk. But thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to our panel. You've been amazing. And thank you to everybody for joining in, listening, and to give your comments and questions. It's been really interesting. And so, yeah, this was part of Reading Climate Festival, and there's lots of other events going on during this time. You can have a look on the Reading Culture Live site to see the full listings. And also, if you follow Reading Climate Action Network, Reading Can, on social media, you can see what they're up to. So the links are all at the bottom of the screen there. Thank you very much, and it's been great, and hopefully see you at another event soon.